Revolution Radio proudly presents, live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio. We are so glad to have you joining us today. We have a very special show coming up today with Miriam Delicado, and I'll be talking about her and to her for the next 2 hours. But first, let me, of course, welcome our Assistant Director of the Global Illumination Council, Reverend Trevor Knott. Hello, Trevor. How are you today?
Hello, I'm doing well. How about you guys?
I'm doing fantastic, and it's again we have another Canadian-based show. I'm the only one in America today. Miriam is joining us from Canada in just a moment as well. For all of you, just know that Trevor will be on the chat, and he is going to be taking your questions for me and for Miriam during the next couple hours. First of all, I did want to touch on a very important topic, I don't know if you want to call it a moment in history, but less than an hour ago, or just about an hour ago, Bradley Manning was sentenced. He was acquitted of, aiding the enemy, but he is looking at guilty charges on many other of everything from espionage to theft, among other things. I believe that tomorrow will be the sentencing, but this is a very important moment in history because today happens to be the day that the Continental Congress signed the law for whistleblowers to be safe to share information regarding any type of wrongdoing in the military. And here we are watching a gentleman, a very young, brave gentleman, being charged with all these ridiculous charges, while those who were in the video that he showed, we all know what video I'm talking about, none of them have been brought to justice. None of them have been charged. None of the military personnel, none of the generals, nobody's being charged. But of course, Bradley Manning is, and we're going to have to see what comes of that. So, without further ado, we do have a very, very special guest joining us. She is a very dear friend of mine and someone who I look up to as a contemporary in the work that we do here on Revolution Radio, on the Global Illumination Council, and for the planet in general. Miriam Delicado has appeared. Of course, you probably all know her from Project Camelot. She's been on Coast to Coast Radio, UFO Hunters. She has done an immense amount of work as an advocate for the indigenous, including the Hopi, the Mamos, and other tribes, and is the executive director of the Great Gathering and also the author of the Blue Star Prophecy. And she is joining us here today to speak about where we are as a time of change to a time of consequence. Let's welcome our good friend Miriam Delicado to the show. Hello, Miriam. How are you?
Oh, I'm very well, and thank you for having me again on the program, Bernard, and also Trevor for all of the efforts that you do in the program. It's great to be here today. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I believe this is our first time we're having you here on Revolution Radio since we've transferred over. The time flies, Miriam. I cannot believe it's almost August. I believe the last time we worked together on a program was back in February, when we did the wonderful series, The Divine Brain, together. But I've always felt that you have so much to share with us, not only as a friend to me, but as a speaker of truth, a speaker of light, and someone who really has great clarity in the path that we are all on. And one of the reasons why, as you remember, I asked you, I was like, I know you have so much to share and that you want to say. So I'm glad we've taken this opportunity to do this program together. So thank you again for that. Let's jump right in, Miriam. And I wanted to just speak up immediately because I've been feeling this. I've been feeling this quite a bit about the whole 2012 thing. We have the 2012 December, 21st, 2012 came along. We had all this great buildup. And it seems like, and forgive me if I'm looking at this incorrectly, but it seems like a lot of the air was kind of like went out of the movement. A lot of us, and not myself particularly, but I find there seems to be less interest in the path of humanity now. And I'm wondering, what do you think now that this hype is over? What happened? What happened? What is happening?
Well, I have a very, very strong stand on this, actually. And right from the beginning, people often ask me, is the world going to end in 2012? The same way as they said, is the world going to cease to exist the way that we knew it when 2000 rolled around with the computer changes? When certain comets were going past, the people would say, is it going to affect the earth in the way that they're saying? Is there going to be massive quakes? Are we going to have, giant tsunamis? And I always said no. With 2012, I said no. The world is still going to be here. And what I witnessed in the 2012 phenomenon was fear. And there were so many books that were written on 2012 that talked about this time of transition. And it talked about a cleansing of the planet. And it talked about the 3 days of light and the 3 days of darkness. And it talks about all of these different aspects of the, quote, Mayan prophecies. What needs to be very clear right from the beginning, because the whole program is based on this, really, is that the people that came forward were interpreting a concept that literally can take a lifetime to understand. And the people, even from the Mayan culture, some of them that came out, I think were also caught up in their own personal hype of what happened out here in the material world. And it was so disheartening for me to come across, quote, elders from different cultures. And I always make this clear because I work with the Hopi so much that it was not the Hopi that were saying this, okay? But it was other people also that were coming out saying, well, December 21st, 2012 is the date, and this is when this is going to happen, and this is the transition, and this what's going to take place. And I would sit back and I would listen to them respectfully. And then I would immediately realize that they were not clear on their own ancestral knowledge. Because 2012, December 21st, 2012, may have been a date on the Mayan calendar according to some people, but the entire interpretation of what that prophecy was misunderstood in the public. And it was misunderstood because of these inaccurate perceptions. So in saying that, I am not even an expert on the Mayan culture. So one might ask, what right do I have? Well, I have the right as an observer and as a spiritual being connecting into very clear, beautiful understandings or perceptions of what's coming and not tying into this fear. It was a dangerous situation as much as it was a positive situation on December 21st, 2012. It was a collective of energy with people praying and meditating and doing ceremony around that time. And a lot of people felt that. And of course they would, because it was the unified earth praying for the positive future. Unfortunately, because, and it gets so complicated in my understanding of this, because we were supposed to have that collective prayer, but it was supposed to be more focused. And because the 2012 fear-mongers brought out December 21st, 2012 and built that up, including the mass media, they just loved that. We have done harm to ourselves, because now in order to get that world movement of mass prayer again, it's going to take 10 times, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 times more work in order to have that happen.
Right.
In the focused way that it was meant to happen, Bernard.
Yeah, and I can't help, and I know that we have spoken of this privately in the past. I can't help but point out the gosh, I don't know how to say it nicely. The fear pornographers that just use this the fear in humanity at that moment to just really try to generate commercial interests and whatnot. I can't help but wonder where they all went. Are they did they make their millions of dollars and move to an island somewhere? But it seems that also worked against what we're talking about here, in the sense that it really did help deflate that motivation to keep the work going, to keep the movement of consciousness and prayer and meditation that you're speaking of, to keep it moving forward.
Well, I think that it's also brought about a lot of clarity for people, because there were people in the community, in this alternative community, who were talking about 2012. They sold a lot of books, and I know I have a book, but someone just talked to me this morning and they said, how much money have you actually made on, they didn't ask me that directly, but they were talking to me about publishing it and the cost of editors and everything else. I have given away so many of these books, and that I can say that I really haven't made any money on the book. I've given away more physical books than I have made money on them. So in saying that, just so that people out there understand that, yes, I've written a book, but I'm very much open to sharing as much as possible. The people, there were certain people out there that wrote books on 2012 that did make a lot of money, and they put on a lot of seminars, and they charged a lot of people a lot of money to talk about the 3 days of darkness. And now I don't know what they're saying. It's kind of interesting. Where have they gone? What's happened? And the backlash to our community is, see, you guys are a bunch of idiots. You're just selling books, and you're doing seminars, and you're taking advantage of people. And meanwhile, the rest of us who really have been doing the work of, doing physical projects in order to support a more harmonious way of life with the earth, doing projects that are creating a more harmonious way of life in the society of humanity itself, and bringing about a very rational look at how we are changing and transitioning and moving forward in this historic time. Now we are having the backlash of the money mongers for the 2012 movement. Mm-hmm. I know that there's certain Mayans out there that brought this out, and they will tell you themselves that they never said what these people reinterpreted. Myself, have worked with different, quote, indigenous people, and I can't even say that I'm an expert on them. I cannot say that. Mm-hmm. What I can say is that I have a deep respect and honor for who they are and what they stand for, and that in this situation with prophecy, for example, with Hopi, the Hopi will not talk about their prophecies for this exact reason. They see the destruction that comes as a result of releasing a prophecy that people don't understand. And I can say this, even the prophecies that are in the public right now from Hopi are not fully understood. They're not fully understood. And people are even writing books about their prophecies. So we have to use a great deal of caution when we look at any kind of a prophecy that is being given to us. And when we have to really just be present in the moment. And today we are surrounded by a set of situations and circumstances, and we have to really be present about what's being presented to us. Prepare for the future, absolutely, but and try to work towards preparing for those different scenarios that may come up. But be very careful, because my interpretation of this time that we're in essence, does connect with what the Mayans, I believe, were trying to say, which is we are in a time of transition on the planet, a transition spiritually, even physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, in every way possible. We are transitioning as a human culture. And that human culture in the past was more connected to the earth and to the natural elements. And now we're moving, and then we moved away from that. We were moved away from it very intentionally by people that are leading us. Now we have to come back into balance again so that there will be a future. The 3 days of darkness, if I understand the Mayans correctly, and again, I am not an expert, and I have not studied them in any way, but from the propaganda that's been put out, I believe what they were trying to say is that each day in the Mayan calendar is a time period, you see? So, because each day in the Mayan calendar is a time period. So how can they say the 3 days of darkness is 1 day, 2 days, 3 physical days for us? How can they say that? Mm-hmm. And then they say it's 3 days, and then it's 3 days, it goes into the time of the light, right? The 3 days of light. How can they say that it's a physical day, which is what everyone was saying? Well, if we look at it from a different perspective, 3 days of darkness is 3 days of insanity coming up, reeling around, and we're fluttering around trying to figure out where we are, who we are, why we're here, what we're doing. And then moving forward into the time of light, the realization, the awakening has begun. So if we look back, I always ask people to come with me. Go back. Take yourself back 10 years ago. Where were you? Figure out what apartment you were living in, what house you were in, what job you had. Ask yourself what your mental thinking was, what your physical thinking was about the perceptions around you 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. And then look at yourself today. Did you have any understanding of what a guide was, or a spirit being, or anything esoteric at that time? No, probably not. But now look at yourself today. This is the time we have been moving through the time of darkness. And now what's happened is this. We've been moving through a time of darkness. Then we moved into what I call like a gray period, let's say. It's the in-between, the darkness and the light. It's either going to turn dark again, or it's going to turn into light. And I believe that it's going to turn into light. So we've been in this gray area, which is really the really unbalanced area. Mm-hmm. And you can see that in the instability of everything from ourselves to the political structures. That's the instability. We're in the gray area. So we've been going through the time of choice, and then the time of transition, and now we are moving into the time of consequence. And this, I believe, is what cultures around the world and prophecies around the world are really trying to say. And this is a much more balanced approach to understanding what we're doing. But can we pinpoint a single day? No, I don't believe we can. I don't believe anyone has that ability except God.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of pinpointing a day, yesterday there was a much hullabaloo in the community about this, what is it, the sacred grand sextile. Yesterday was the fourth day of the magnetic moon. It created a Metatron triangle, Star of David, whatever you wish to call it. And I can't help but think or feel that this process that the Mayans were concerned with, and not only the Mayans, but as we know, many of the indigenous cultures around the world were basically preparing us for what you just said, the transition time. That there is going to be specific alignments that are going to empower us to make that choice. Are we going to make a choice of reverting back to the old ways, or are we going to make the choice to propel humanity into something much more positive? And just out of curiosity, Miriam, what are your feelings on this grand sextile thing that's happening right now, actually?
Well, I view these information that comes out from this community from a very personal standpoint. Okay. What I tend to do for myself is I tend to try and be as aware as I can of my own personal surroundings and my own personal actions in a really microcosmic way. And it's through those observations that I'm able to sort of see what's happening or what may even be coming in the next steps of this evolution for myself personally and then for the planet and so forth. What I know is that for myself is that without even knowing about this, because it's crazy, it's very strange. I don't listen to interviews or read up online. I just do what I'm here to do. I do my work and I just put it out, you know. Right. So I'm very focused in that way. So I tend to have people like yourself come to me and say, "Hey, Miriam, this is going on." And then they say, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "Well, that's very interesting." Because during this time, I spontaneously began a very deep ceremony. And I had no idea that this was happening. So when people say, "How does this affect us?" Whenever there's one of these alignments that comes out, every time that I have been told that there's one of these alignments, I find that I'm doing some kind of ceremony. And I don't do ceremony all the time.
Right. And so
I do find that to be a confirmation, Bernard.
Right.
And so it's as though I'm moving through the process, and there is what I do know is that through my spiritual experiences and my spiritual guidance from my guides.
We got a break coming up, Miriam. I'm sorry, hold that thought. We'll be right back.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
And welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio. We are having a wonderful conversation today with Miriam Delicado. And just before the break, Miriam, you were about to start talking about your guides. And I'm wondering if this is an appropriate time to go into this aspect of the fact that we are moving into a time of transition in our consciousness for all of humanity. All of humanity is moving through this. And how does this all tie in to the messages you received, not only from your guides and the star beings?
Well, my guides. When I say my guides, I actually mean the star beings. I mean the great ancestors, as I call them. and the guides that I have in my meditations, in my prayers, the guide from the voice that comes that is part of you. It's like your higher self, all of those things. So it's like a mixture of everything. It's really about spirit. It's about following your spirit. And the messages that I got from these star beings, 25 years ago, very specifically talked about this time when there would be a period where it was like a time of insanity that would be taking place on the planet, and everything was going to shift. And of course, we're seeing that. I call this a time of insanity. Look around us. We have governments that are falling apart. We have a financial system that is absolutely, beyond comprehension how messed up it is. And I don't want to get into the conspiracy theory part of this. That's not my focus.
Right.
That's other people's work, and I appreciate what they're doing there. And we talk about how the spiritual part of us as a collective human family is changing, and how our perceptions are changing. And so I call this the time of insanity. I can pick that up and put it into the 3 days of darkness. And that's what the guides told me would happen.
Yeah.
And, look at the destruction that's happening on the planet from a more natural way of, from the natural world. They also talked about that it would be coming. So there's a lot going on. And these guides come to me and they will give me, a hint about what to do. And so like this ceremony, just all of a sudden feeling, oh, I have to go into this ceremony. And then I actually found out that others that, in the indigenous communities were also doing ceremony. So, and I didn't know this. And I love how this synchronicity happens and how these confirmations come about. I do know that 25 years ago, the star beings said that there would be certain moments when the cosmic alignments would happen. And at that time, the consciousness of humanity would be uplifted. And one of those things that's helping to uplift us, as much as it could potentially harm us in the more, in other ways, is the cosmic rays that are coming from certain parts of the galaxy and the out there in the universe. Yes. And also with the solar flares that are here, and the particles that are coming to the earth and have been for the last couple of years have been, they've had an effect on us, and both positive and negative in respect to some of the things that have happened with the solar flares, for example, affecting the earth, and how that's made natural disasters. But at the same time, we've been uplifted spiritually as a result of some of those cosmic alignments.
Absolutely. Ever so quickly, Miriam, I just wanted to share with you that it is my understanding that we are moving, like you said, through a time of rebirth, and those of us who are aware of this change that is occurring on the planet, of the change that is happening in the consciousness of the peoples around the world, the message that I got is that we must stay strong, because we are the midwives of this particular birthing of a new consciousness. And I wonder what your thoughts are on that. Are we helping the consciousness grow, those of us who are keen on this information?
I believe that everyone that's listening to this program is a part of the consciousness changing. And it's a part of not only the consciousness changing, because it's through that process that we can create a physical change in our world. And having an understanding of your relationship between yourself and another human being is important. Having an understanding of the relationship between you and how the earth provides for us, and how the air provides for us, and how the sun provides for us. And having an understanding of these things can restore a balanced soul, and a balanced spirit with the relationship to, God, the creator, the source of all things. And there is so much fear that's out there and is being put out there, and it's so dangerous to us. Can I share that the other day someone sent me an article? Mm-hmm. And the article, of course, my foundation of my spiritual work comes from, quote, star beings, aliens, extraterrestrials, the great ancestors. They go by many names: Nordics, blondes, Pleiadians, it's endless.
Right.
Spirits, beings from another place other than that exists here on Earth in a human form. The article came and she said, "What do you think of this?" I didn't even open the article. The subject line read something along the lines of that aliens were here to enslave us and that they were deceitful. Something along those lines.
Right.
I didn't even look at the article. I wrote back to her and I said, isn't it powerful that the star beings that I have contact with talk about the enlightenment of humanity? They talk about the freedom of the soul, the thought, the mind, the body, everything. They talk about the relationship of harmony, peace, love. They talk about respect, honor, gratitude. They talk about balance. They talk about how we don't need to have money in order to have a beautiful existence. They talk about how we have the ability to transform ourselves into something far greater. We can have telepathy, telekinesis. We can have, teleportation, all of these things. This is the beings that I communicate with. And how beautiful is all of the things that I just shared. But in the public, we're seeing more and more where the fear is coming out saying that all these beings are actually tricking us and that they want to destroy us and they want to kill us and they want to enslave us. And what I would say to you and the listeners is how powerful propaganda to put information out there and say that these beings are going to do this, when in fact, what that propaganda is trying to do is keep us enslaved. And I'd really like the listeners to think about that.
Oh, yeah. And I couldn't agree more, Miriam. I just literally myself, personally, if I could share this, went through a little, yesterday we had this situation where people were beginning to debate over the Great Trine and how it's Zionistic propaganda and that's the beginning of the New World Order and this and that. And I from my gut, I agree with you in the sense that it seems that the enslavement has been going on for quite a while. And the propaganda of scaring people away from this knowledge, scaring people away either through religion or through conspiracy theories or whatnot is really lessening our ability to not only empower ourselves but to evolve in the sense that you have just described, that is being presented to us.
Well, it's the same as the 2012 movement. I mean, there's no difference there, is there? Prophecy from ancient cultures, whether they be religious or indigenous, prophecies or some of the great seers that we've had on the planet from the past. Any one of these people understood a very fundamental part of the existence of life, and that is that we have a choice in these things. And this is where we are right now. Okay. We've been walking on a path of development, and through that development of ourselves spiritually and in our intellect, in that growth, We have been able to build all of these technologies to interface with each other, for example. Just as we are here, we're both on Skype and we're reaching out to, thousands of people from around the world during our conversation today. What we need to understand in this next stage is how what we build becomes what we build, what we say, what we think, what we do becomes our reality into the future. And we've had such an explosion of this knowledge, whether it is spiritual or physical, even in zero point energy, for example, technologies that people are trying to bring out. There's a lot of choices that we've had to make along the way. Do we share this with the public? Do we not share it with the public? Do we begin to build these technologies? What are we going to do? It's choices. But the reality is, and no rational human being alive can argue the point that the fresh water, the pristine water of the earth is being depleted. There is not a human being alive that will argue that point. And if they do, then, they should be set aside and not talked to ever again, because there's no point, okay? Because it means that they are, in my mind, it tells me that they are insane. Mm-hmm. Literally. And I mean this, literally. If anyone argues that point with me, I would say that they are insane. Mm-hmm. So no one can argue this point. Well, if no one can argue the point, then we have to look at things very rationally from a spiritual point of view and say, what is it that we're doing today that's going to affect us tomorrow? Now, we've had all of these choices, and you don't have choice forever. If you're walking towards a cliff, you have a choice when you turn around. And you have a choice when you get to the end of the cliff, whether or not you continue walking, which means you fall off the cliff and die. That's the choice. Nothing can be more clear than that. We are walking towards the cliff. Just before we get to the end, we have been making choices all the way as to what path we're going to take. And now we can either build the bridge to go over the cavern, or we can turn around and go back to where we were, or we can walk off the cliff. Those are our three choices.
Yep.
So which one do we choose? Spiritually, this ties into the fundamental change that is needed on the planet today. We are hypersexualized. I mean, hypersexualized. Sexual slavery of women, sexual slavery of children. We are highly militarized all over the planet, and killing has become acceptable. In westernized society, we believe that cheaper is better, give us more, and become the consumer. And at the cost of families and children in virtual slavery for almost nothing every day to build and create our knickknacks. These things and these perceptions are absolutely based within the spiritual understanding of who we are. And this is why a spiritual or even religious, and I will never completely bash religion, because religion in its correct form is beneficial to humanity.
Yes.
It's not destructive. We have to be cautious when we take an entire community of people and think that they're criminals or that they're evil. And some of the systems that are being built in these structures, and including some of the systems that we are building in the spiritual community, are also destructive. And we have to take responsibility for that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where literally the time of choice, and we moved into the time of transition, which is kind of where we are right now. We're in the time of transition. We are not finished and in that time of transition, we're still being given choices, okay? So the time of transition is still present. And now, within about a year to 2 years, we're going to start seeing the consequences of our choices. And if we do not have solid solutions in place on our planet, and I don't mean the completion of those solutions, but the beginning of those solutions and the implementation of them and the use of those solutions. If we don't see that in a radical way within the next 4 years to 5 years, we will not have an existence in the future. And if you have children, I would tell your children not to have children. That's what I would say. And that's a very radical thing to say. And some people would view that in all sorts of different ways. But I would not want my grandchildren to have to suffer with no food or water on this planet in the future.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
it is out of compassion and out of that I say that. Go ahead, Bernard.
I was going to say I completely agree with you. Quite honestly, I feel that there takes a certain responsibility when we're bringing life onto the planet. That if we are not being responsible with our resources, that again, it's the old, putting the putting the responsibility to our children and our grandchildren to fix the mess that we are participating in. And I just want to point out, now that you're talking about the resources, that you were instrumental in facilitating the Hopi to speak to the public about their own natural resources for the first time in history. And for me, that says a lot when the Hopi speak to the public for the first time because of the fact that their water was I don't even know where it ended up. I don't know if you have an update on that, about how the government was trying to steal their water resources.
Well, they're still trying to steal their water resources.
Yeah, what else is new?
They're still trying to take the water from them. In that situation, the Hopi had a prophecy, and I can and do and am authorized to speak on this. Okay,
Yeah.
in a very simple way, though. They're from the village of Shamopavi, which is what they say is the mother village of Hopi. When the Hopis first came to the area when they first came to that area where they currently live, it was the village of Shamopavi that was one of the first villages that was built and came alive. And they, of course, do their ceremonies and carry their prophecies for, hundreds of, if not thousands of years. Now, the village of Shamopavi is the last remaining village to still maintain and complete and carry out the full ceremonial cycles of their people, that as they have done for thousands of years. And in saying this, it's a very powerful statement in itself. There have been others who have come from Haute-Villa. If you look into the public and you really look, you realize that all of the elders that spoke publicly, almost all of them, have been from Haute-Villa, the ones from the past.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of that. What happened there was a breakdown in different aspects of the Hopi way of life, and they saw certain things that they wanted to share. But each village is a little bit unique, and so we have to respect and honor that.
Mm-hmm.
We have to respect Haute-Villa for what they've chosen to do. We have to respect and honor Shamopavi for what it is that they have chosen to do. And they have, as I said, they are the last remaining village in this very moment to maintain and complete the ceremonial cycle. But they can't do that without some of the people from other villages helping to support them as well. So we have to honor all of Hopi when we speak on this.
Yes.
In saying that, the Hopi have prophecies, and the only people that have those prophecies are what they call the initiated men and women of Hopi. No one outside of Hopi has those prophecies. And there are literally hundreds of them. So this is something to take note of, that we only know of, 9?
Right.
There's so many prophecies within Hopi. One of these prophecies was, as I would try to relay in a most respectful and honoring way, was that if the water was ever taken from Hopi, that the world would end because the water would dry up and we would all die. So when the government came and said, we want your water, and they put out this Senate Bill 2109, and they brought it to the Hopi and they brought it to the Navajo or Diné people, people rebelled because they knew that this was wrong and that there's no responsibility with that water. It just goes to the corporations. They know that. That's a proven fact. Peabody Coal was attached to that bill with the release of any and all damages that they may do in the past, present, or future on the land of the Diné or the Hopi. There was there was a lot of intricate things in this bill. And the Hopi saw this as being so dangerous to us as a planet and as a people and as human beings and as life, that for the very first time, the leaders of Shamopavi village, the Kiva leaders of Shamopavi village, made a decision to speak to the public and share this prophecy. How is it that after thousands of years, and I don't know how long they've had that particular prophecy, but for me personally, it's very frightening. And if we want to have fear about something, I think that we should have fear of that. I think that we should have fear over what's going to happen to our water. And that fear should not paralyze us, but it should stimulate us.
Mm-hmm.
And it should empower us to take steps to support other ways of working with our water. And that's what we should be empowered over. So
Absolutely.
the Hopi came forward and said that they wanted to share this with the world, and so I was myself. I was asked to come and help them with this, so I went down there, and a beautiful friend, Neil Sickles from
Oh yeah, I love Neil.
From Caretakers of Earth. He came out to Hopi, and he helped to film the...
Okay. Miriam, hold that thought. We'll be right back in 2 minutes.
Listening to Revolution Radio. Say yes to a new paradigm of thriving, self-mastery, self-governance, and expanded consciousness. Now is the time to step out of the old and into the new. Move beyond your comfort zone and into your extraordinary potential. Elevate with your host, Siobhan Cerisi of the Humanity Transcending Show, every Thursday, 12 to 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
Starting August 5th, 2013 at 7 a.m. Eastern Time.
Don't unlock doors you're not prepared to go through.
Hi, this is Angela Black, your host for our new show on Revolution Radio, World Horizon. Join me and the World Horizon team for the most up-to-date global news show on the net. We bring you fresh perspectives from around the globe without the constraints of mainstream media filters. World Horizon airs on freedomslips.com every Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Time and is rebroadcast on our own Studio B, weekdays from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. You can also catch our shows on YouTube whenever you want at youtube.com/Free Revolution Radio. See you there. That's World Horizon on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
Where information never sleeps.
No more tricks. No more lies. Only truth.
Now you can share the topics that drive the discussions of your favorite talk shows with TalkStream Live's topic-driven talk radio. List and promote real-time talk radio topics, or post the topics that you want to hear. Hot topics are tweeted and retweeted, and include simple click-to-listen audio links. The future of talk radio is topic-driven talk radio. Available now at TalkStreamLive.com.
Finder of lost children and missing persons. Monique Lassan. Surveilling civil and criminal investigations. I investigate.
No, I am the chosen one.
Do not underestimate the power of good, and do not dismiss the strength of the child.
Yes, every Wednesday evening on Revolution Radio, come join our very own I Investigatrix, Monique Lassan, with her private X-Files.
So you're the finder of lost children?
Private X-Files, every Wednesday from 10 to midnight Eastern, Studio B, on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
I realize it's very hard for you to take in. But is your destiny to find the golden child?
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio. Anyway, before we went on the break, we did begin speaking about the Hopi situation with the water. And I'm getting a lot of feedback. Is something going on over here, guys? Can we fix that if you are listening to the speakers? Thank you, that's gone. Anyway, so welcome back to the show. And before we went on the break, Miriam was explaining to us about, from what I consider to be one of the most historical moments of the Hopi, to speak to us about their water situation. And Miriam, before we went on the break, you were talking and telling us about how this video did come about for this Hopi elder to come and share the information with the rest of the world, which is something they have never really done in history. And I believe you had left off talking about the production of it and who was involved in that.
Right. Thank you, Bernard. So, my friend and I, Neil Sickles, came out and we went to Hopi and we had this opportunity to film this elder. And the message was very simple. This is a prophecy of our people that if our water is taken from us, the rest of the world will dry up and there will be no future. So because of the seriousness of it, they were told, even in their prophecies, because something to understand about Hopi is that they don't just have one thing. If they have a prophecy and it's coming to pass, they actually already have been told what to do as a result of that prophecy coming. There's always, in the Hopi, quote, way of life, Hopi is a way of life. That is what they are. They are a way of life.
Right.
And in the Hopi way of life, there was always a path that you were supposed to follow. If your child does something wrong, there's a path to follow. If the husband is confronted with a situation while he's traveling, with an animal, for example, I'm sure that there's a something that he's supposed to do. Everything is laid out. With this prophecy of the water, they were told that if this prophecy came, that they were to do whatever it took to stop it. Okay? And that meant that they left their comfort zone that they've held for 1,000 years in that one place. 1,000 years they've been present in the village of Shamopavi,
Wow.
that village has existed. And after 1,000 years of being in that one location, they came forward and spoke to the world. People say, well, the Hopi have spoken in the past. Well, no, they have not spoken from this village. And it is a very delicate situation in understanding Hopi. And I think a lot of people don't understand the true nature of these people. So again, just like with the Mayans, there's a lot of misrepresentation and misinterpretations that are out there. There's also a lot of accurate information that's out there on the Hopi that some people have written as well.
Right.
But in respect to the water, the snake priest came out and made this statement on behalf of the, quote, as they say, leadership in Shamopavi village. Very significant, very historic. Even within, if someone goes online and looks into this, they'll say, well, the Hopi passed this SB 2109. They wanted it. Well, that was the government side of Hopi. The government side. The traditionals and the people who understand what the consequences were fought against it. Very complicated issue. And I was there for a little bit of that.
Right.
But in no way was I the one doing all the advocating and work or anything like that. I just helped with a couple of things. And of course, the Diné people, the government of the Navajo and Diné people, they didn't want this SB 2109 right from the start because it had a lot of language in it that they didn't want. And then, of course, the more traditional people and the younger people said, no, you can't do this. And I in no way see that the Hopi or the Diné are saying, no, you can't have any water. It's ours in a possessive way. What they are saying is, how dare you come to our land and deny the rights of our people to say that in the future we have to go and now talk to the government if we want to have water for our own people, because that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I'm getting a bit of feedback, by the way. It stopped now. They clearly set this out as the instructions that they originally had to stop this from happening. And this is what we're talking about. We're talking about choices turning into the repercussions and the consequences of our choices. And when we take all of that water and we give it to Peabody Coal, to what they call it slurrying, and that means that they crack the earth all over, get the coal out, put it into a big tube, and then to transport that coal from one location to another, to fire the coal plants and to send it to another coal facilitating plant for the energy of it, that then takes care of our wonderful Las Vegas and California. What happens? They use pristine aquifer water to slurry coal, to transport it from one location to another. This is only one example of how society has to understand that the spiritual understanding and relationship that we have between our spiritual selves and the natural world is not just about foo-foo. It is about understanding that this is what gives us life. That is spiritual understanding. Spiritual understanding is not meditating, okay? Spiritual understanding is not doing mantras. Spiritual understanding is not talking about being able to enter into another dimensional world. Spiritual understanding is about understanding you and the relationship that you have with everything that exists around you. For some, that may mean being able to enter into another dimension. For others, it is just the relationship between themselves and the natural world and the human being that's standing beside them. This is spiritual understanding. And we have been given choices for a very long time in the development and evolution of who we are as human beings. And now we are almost at the edge of that cliff that we talked about earlier. And the question is, are we going to build the bridge? Well, many people on the planet, many people all over the world are working to build the bridge. They're getting the supplies. They've been getting the supplies and putting it close to the edge. That's what we've been doing through education, through creating projects, physical projects, planting projects, social projects that physically in some way create a different paradigm than what we have been walking on. So all these tools have been brought to the edge of the cliff. The question is now, how do we bring all those people together, or how do we begin to build the bridge? Because we're going to need architects and laborers and structural engineers and all of those things. And that's where we're at. So we've been making choices all this time. Now, how are we going to do it? And is the bridge going to be strong enough? I'm using this metaphor because it's a way for people to really understand that this time, for example, that we're talking about today, I have been foretold. It has been foretold to me 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And those messages through different means, through my meditations, my dreams, my waking world, all different ways, has been saying that we are now we're almost at the edge, and now we're going to turn into the consequences. And here's what the consequences will be. The consequences will be food shortages. The consequences will be water shortages. The consequences will be earthquakes, solar flares. The consequences will be everything in nature starting to die. It will be talking about more and more fires, drought, famine. It will be talking about all of these things. And this is not fear-mongering talk. This is the reality that we are placing on ourselves. And this is very clear. The planet cannot sustain in the way that we are currently living. We can sustain so many more human beings on this planet. It's almost unimaginable. But if we stay in the current paradigm of the way that we are interacting with our worlds, with our world here in the natural world, we cannot even sustain what we currently have. We're done. So we have to implement any and all actions that we are being called to put forward now that are peaceful, that are non-confrontational, in the sense of, we need to be peaceful and respectful for everyone. Because I'm not talking about, having riots and all of these kinds of things. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about education on water, education on life itself. And I know that the listeners from Revolution Radio are very focused on the different paradigms that we need to change, that we need to transition through. That the listeners of Revolution Radio are at the forefront of this change in the paradigm that we're living, and that they are the ones doing the work, or they have the sense that they need to be doing something. And what they need to be doing, what we all need to be doing, is continuing to educate ourselves on what the realities are around us, and looking for ways to be able to support, in any small or large way, the natural world. And if that means supporting Hopi with their cause with the water, then do that. If it's through simple letter writing or emails or petitions or even court actions or your community councils. Community councils are a very powerful way of educating your community council for how it is that we can build a sustainable community into the future. Bring your ideas to them. We have to come even more into the understanding and acceptance that we have to act now in order to have the consequences of our actions of the past not be as drastic. And I still believe that there's time to do that. We don't have to fix the problems today. What we have to do is have the foundation in place to make it so that we're not a runaway train to the end of the cliff. We have to slow everything down. And there are certain things that need immediate attention. And one of the things that we have to have immediate attention on, I mean right now, is our water.
Yeah.
Water is the issue of life itself. And water has to be in the forefront of everyone's minds, and it needs to be there now. And it needs to be on the food production. Monsanto is one of the most destructive companies to humanity that exists. And not because they're doing genetically modified foods. No, it's not even because of that. It's because of the policies that they create. That's what's destructive. And so it is, there has to be an understanding and a balance in anything, whether we're talking about, the spiritual world, the natural world, the physical world, the other worlds. There has to be a balance in everything, Bernard.
Very true, Miriam, and I can't help but wonder, as someone who is involved in this quote unquote alternative media, as someone who is an advocate for change, as someone who really puts, I put myself out there on a personal level to hopefully motivate people to create that change. What do we say to those, for lack of a better term, those that are involved in alternative media as listeners, watchers, and readers, to get them away from the computer and to literally put their feet on the ground and help create this change? What would be that one step that we could motivate them, motivate our brothers and sisters that are, of course, our supporters in alternative media to start building something better than what we have now?
That's a very good question. And having different people from around the world, as I'm sure you do as well, contact you and say, I want to do something, I just don't know what to do. Some people have, some people have the desire and the passion and the vision of different ideas that have come up that would support the planet and humanity. And I've talked to so many people who have had those. They need to follow that vision. They need to follow it and get to work. For example, if you see yourself creating an event of some kind and bringing together different people with knowledge on a subject such as water, then start creating that event if that's your passion. If you're the type of person that you've had a vision of building a greenhouse, then get out there and build that greenhouse. If you have the vision that you need to get involved in politics, get out there and get involved in politics. If you have the vision of getting involved in the in trying to create a different educational system and create a school, for example, get out there and get doing that. You have to follow as an individual the vision and the focus and the drive and the beauty that's in your own heart. You and I cannot do that or even direct people for what to do. What we can, and what's most important, is that the listeners and even ourselves, Bernard, you and I,
yes,
just take responsibility for what we're feeling and seeing and understanding, and then bring it into manifestation. Manifest it. And the manifestation could take years, but begin. Start today. Take a piece of paper and write down your ideas. Start talking to your friends and family if that's what you think. Get the manifestation moving. You know, I've been working for the last 3 years on the Great Gathering. And the Great Gathering started, you know, for me, it started 25 years ago. And really, it was my whole life. You know, I thought about how people could come together. But 25 years I've been working on waiting for the right moment to create the Great Gathering. And now it's taken 3 years of absolute focus for me, dedication, complete and total dedication to make it happen. And it's been struggle after struggle after struggle, challenge after challenge. But it is still in my passionate heart to move forward because I see the good work that's coming from it. Working with different people all over the world, and possibly even many of the listeners have had conversations with, for example, about what we can do together, one-to-one. How can I support you? How can you support me? And making these choices about who we even associate with. You know, for the last 2 years, I've had some conflicts, for example, with different people. And these conflicts, for the longest time, I was thinking I had to deal with these conflicts. I had to face them. I had to turn around and face them. And I realized recently that I don't need to be dealing with this conflict. It's for me personally, it was a distraction to the work. The work with the people of the, quote, true heart. And this is very important because even with Hopi, they say they're not going to be the ones to change the earth or change anything. It's going to be the people. And we, the listeners, you and I, we are the change. Literally, we are the change. It's up to us. The other people that are not listening to this kind of program are not going to do what it is that we are called by God, Creator, Source to do. We have a calling. And even that language to me 20 years ago, oh, you have a calling from God itself. Well, yeah, I feel I do. And I think that all of the people that I talk to, we all feel the same. It's a calling to just from something higher than ourselves, a responsibility that is coming from somewhere deep inside of us that says we have a responsibility to do this. And these choices of whether we act on it or not is going to be the consequences for the future, because we're the ones that are being called upon. The listeners are being called upon to do the work in order to allow for the future of this planet. It's not only about educating ourselves as individuals. It's about more than that. And it's so difficult to choose for another person what they should be doing. But we can focus, and I would suggest that every single person that listens to this program now and in the future, educate themselves on what's happening to water, what's happening in the scientific community as far as different technologies that are available to us.
And we are going to be going on a short break, and we'll be right back with Miriam Delicado. Hold on.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio. We were speaking with Miriam Delicado, and before the break, let's just say this entire show has been jam-packed full of information, inspiration, and empowerment. And I can't help but to think, Miriam, especially if I could ask you, what is it that we can do as human beings, let me take that back. What is it that we're all feeling? Because we're all feeling something. We're all very aware that there is something going on, whether you want to look at the conspiracy world where it's the New World Order taking everything over, or if you want to move into the metaphysical world of how we are all being empowered and changing our DNA, or the visions of the indigenous and the prophecies of the indigenous. It all ties into the same thing, that now is the time for action. Now is the time for change. And what are your ideas or your thoughts, or actually your intuition of how this ties into what we're all feeling? What are we all feeling? What are we sensing?
Well, that's a great question, and it certainly does tie into the spiritual shifting that's been taking place. Literally, well, what year are we in right now? 2013. So I have to think back, 12, 11, 10. I think probably mid 2010. If take yourself back to mid 2010, that's when things really started to get very, very strong in our emotions. We started to become very emotional.
I got to say, I moved to the Appalachian Mountains in mid 2010 because of that intense feeling.
Oh, see, there you go. So mid 2010 was when this energy really started to take shape. And by the time we got to mid 2011, it was almost like people were panicking everywhere. Think about that. Man, people were just, we got to move. Oh, yeah. I got to do something. Talk to me. God. And we were all stretched to the limit because we thought that we had to do something immediately right now today. And that's lasted for probably, since then, yes, we still have that knowingness that we have to do something and we have to act. But it did become very, very, very strong close to mid 2011. By the end of 2011, it was almost panic. And people were just desperate to say, get out, get doing what you're supposed to be doing, let's get moving. And a lot of people made changes in their lives at the end in 2011. Lots of people, they moved, they changed, they got divorces, they got into new relationships. And the divorces I'm talking about are people that maybe were together for 30 years. That all of a sudden one partner woke up and is spiritually aware and the other one isn't, and they just couldn't take it anymore and they split. So a lot of really drastic changes were taking place in 2011 in preparation for what was coming. So in 2012, there was still a lot of panic with people trying to say, we have to do this, we have to do this, we have to do this. There's something inside of me that says we're running out of time. Well, you know what? We are running out of time. We're getting close to the edge of the cliff. And that's what people are feeling. But I think that what we may have noticed is that, especially since 2012, with the unity meditations that were happening all over the planet, we've calmed down. Have you noticed that, Bernard?
Quite a bit, yes.
I'm sure that people noticed that after that they did feel calmer. And I want to make a very powerful point on this, that this is why what happened December 21st, 2012 with the world meditation was positive and negative. Because we all felt, okay, we can calm down and everything's going to be okay now. There's a woman out there who said, oh, we're okay now. The Hopi say that we're okay now because December 21st and everything's okay. Anybody who listens to this individual will know who I'm talking about. This is the most ridiculous thing I could ever imagine someone saying, because the Hopi didn't believe that December 21st was any particular date, the way that it was being perceived in the public. And the reason we calmed down was because of that unified meditation, which is a proven scientific, it has been proven scientifically to have an effect on physical matter.
Yep.
Okay? Physical matter is changed by unified meditation and prayer, period. Now, again, the negative aspect of this is that we have individuals like, for example, this woman who says that she speaks on behalf of the Hopi, saying, oh yeah, it's okay now. Everything's okay. No, it's not okay. And the Hopi don't believe that it's okay. The Hopi believe that we have to, continue doing our work. And it doesn't mean we can sit back and relax now. It means now we really do need to go to work, but we need to do it calmly and spiritually and physically and mentally and emotionally calm. The idea of the unified prayer should have come a few years from now. And that's been taken from us.
Oh.
You understand? That's what I know.
Yeah.
That prayer, that unified prayer, was supposed to come a couple of years from now. And we were supposed to be a lot more focused with it so that we could create that change even more powerfully than we did on December 21st, 2012. And maybe what we can do is use that as a strengthening tool and as a foundation to go somewhere else. And maybe the Creator itself decided, yes, we're going to support, it's going to support that prayer in December 21st, 2012, as well as the one that could potentially be coming for us and with us.
Miriam, if I can just jump in and share an anecdote we had Anelia Benz on the show, 8 months ago, and she was saying something similar to the effect that it's 2016 that we need to really put our energies together to make the shift happen. And I don't know if you see or envision years, but I just wanted to put that into the conversation that there is somebody else that says, hello, we should be doing this 2016.
I know that there are dates that are coming, yes. And that's all that I'll say.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yes, I know that there are dates that are coming, yes. And there are very specific things that are going to take place, and it's going to shake the world. Meaning it's going to shock the world.
Yeah,
I'm sure. There are things that are coming that will shock people. And as someone once said, they are right in front of your eyes. They are in front of your eyes right now. And you're hearing it right now. And when the bigger picture comes out, it's just going to be more and more and more and more revelation as far as what truth is, what's really in front of us, who and what we are, who and what maybe your friend is, or all of these things are going to come out even more and more and more. It's going to be more and more shocking as it comes forward, the truth. And we have to prepare ourselves because the current way in which we are existing, we have been taught and trained to not look, to not ask questions. And we have been preparing ourselves to look and to ask questions. This is our preparation. And as we move through this transitional time, and through the time of choice, blending and bringing all of that forward into the consequences mean that everything that we learned through the time of choice and the time of transition has to be at least started or present. That's the consequence. Consequences doesn't mean anything negative. It means these are the consequences. But we have to look at both sides. Because speaking to any Indigenous person that has true knowledge, they will be very clear with you that there is darkness and there is light. And what we must work with is both of them, looking at them in a balanced way so that there is the middle section. You are not only looking at light, you are not only looking at darkness. You have to understand that there is the presence of both, and do so rationally and with a great deal of strength within yourself. And the only way to overcome difficulty is to be strong. One of the things these star beings told to me back in 1988 was only the strong in will survive the coming days. So if you are emotionally not strong, regardless, you're not going to be able to deal with whatever it is that comes our way. And with some of the natural disasters that have happened, you can emotionally break down, and that could take years and years and years to recover from. Even spiritually, if we're not strong, we can't survive. You know, if an entity, if a ghost or something walks up to us in the middle of the day, how are you going to emotionally deal with that if you're not spiritually strong? So just looking at it, you know, again, Revolution Radio, all of the alternative community, all of the alternative media sources, all of the alternative community itself has done a fantastic job. We, you and I, for example, as a speaker and as a host, we are only able to give a platform to something. The listeners are really the ones that are doing the work in specific areas that we're not doing. And we have to give great honor to all of the people out there who are part of this worldwide change. And literally, it has only been a handful of maybe a few thousand people on the planet itself who have been the change makers, who have created the ability to facilitate, build, and and then manifest these policies or these physical projects that are creating change on the planet in every direction. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the Occupy movement, for example, because I don't want to talk about politics. I'm not a political person. That's someone else's task. But just to touch on it, to say that the Occupy movement is a movement that's brought about a deeper understanding of something. But what are the Occupy movement, for example, doing? And this is a rhetorical question because I know that you're involved in the Occupy movement, and I don't want to focus on that. But what are they doing to do physical change and manifest into the world what it is that's necessary and needed? These are the questions that we have to ask ourselves with any group that we're involved with, any media that we listen to, any organization that we associate with, and who we support financially and support emotionally, physically, spiritually. What is that individual, group, organization giving back to me as a person? What is it giving back to my family, my community, the world? This is where we are. If someone is arguing with you and not seeing a vision that's beautifully and clearly from the heart, peaceful, productive, balanced, don't continue arguing anymore. It's okay to say goodbye to them. Just do it in a respectful way.
I have to jump in and giggle because I'm giggling right now as you're speaking because of the fact that there is so many wonderful, amazing, let's say Facebook pages, Facebook groups, websites, organizations, and communities that are constantly being attacked by quote unquote trolls, and they seem and I will admit I'm one of those people that used to argue with everybody when they came on the page, and have realized in the last year or two that it's not necessary, that our work is what matters, and to just let these quote unquote trolls, I wish there was a better word, but right now that's the word du jour, that the trolls are just a distraction. Keep moving on with your work. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I am. I have, I'm no different than everyone else. I still have we all of us out here are, we're having our individual experiences. And for example, I've been struggling. I struggled for a while now, for the last few years. How do I deal with people that are very destructive and manipulative? Because it's not just destructive people. When you see a destructive person, that's one thing. Everyone can see that. But the manipulative destructive people, or the people that put the propaganda out or try to manipulate us to think that all of the people are dark, as far as the quote extraterrestrial community.
Oh yeah, Illuminati based or whatever.
Yeah, it's all Illuminati based. Yeah, these people are literally the paradigm that they're in, the paradigm that wants to keep us, quote, in this community understood as slaves.
Yes, I agree.
And so, regardless of whether it's even in our own communities, I said, I've had to deal with one individual who, just hearing her name causes me pain still, and it's very difficult for me to deal with, because I see the destruction that she brought and how damaging it was. And it wasn't just damaging to me. It literally damaged the entire planet.
I hear you.
And I know this for a fact. And I struggled. The most manipulative person one could imagine. I mean, I could never even be like that. I don't know how. I don't know how. And she made people turn on me that were so devoted to our friendship as I was devoted to them in the friendship. And it was a work relationship also, that I was shocked. I mean, I was in shock while this was happening. I didn't even know what to do or what to say. There were lies, manipulation. They wanted to control these people. And I watched how she was controlling a group of people that I thought no one could ever control. And so for about a year, I was like, how do I even deal with this? I don't even think it was a year. It's maybe it was 7 months that this happened. And so for the next 2 years after this incident, and it did clear up. And that person is now no longer associated with my friend and these group of people or anything. They realized what was going on. But for 2 years, I sat back and I said, how can I deal with people like this? And then I was confronted with 2 others that were the exact same personality types. And again, it was in a situation where I had to do what I thought was necessary to protect the path of work that we were on. And I realized again that this is something I recently realized in the last 6 months. I do not have to give away my power to anyone. I do not have to belittle myself to make a person who's standing beside me feel more comfortable. And I don't have to exert I only use the word power just for an understanding of what I'm talking about. But I don't have to exert my power in front of someone and say, this is what I have. This is what you don't have, that kind of argumentative type of atmosphere that we find ourselves in. It's about respecting who and what we are and what we're doing. And if someone else doesn't want to participate in what we are doing, I don't have to belittle myself to make them feel comfortable as they're saying, well, I don't know about that. I think you should do this and this and this and this over here. Meanwhile, you're going away from your original vision of what you're being called to do in order to follow someone, and what they're doing doesn't have any value to you, to me as the individual, for example. it doesn't have any value to the work and the call of the vision that I was originally looking at, that I asked them to participate in. And so why am I trying to, work with this person when clearly they are not of the same vision or heart or understanding as me? And this has brought me great calm and clarity and understanding that I just don't need to do that anymore. And by saying that, in saying that, it just changed my life. Again, it just changed me again. I'm so grateful that I came to that deep, deep, deep core value realization. And with the listeners, this is what we're confronted with, is resistance.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is stop trying to convince the resistors and start finding the people who will collaborate.
I just wanted to say, Miriam, I'm sorry, we've got about 3 more minutes left. And with these last 3 minutes, I want to, agree with everything that you're saying, because I feel that the reality of it is that many of us in this particular movement, we're talking today about a time of change to a time of consequence. And we are at the brink of that time of consequence. And the reality of it is, as you have said throughout this program, as we're wrapping up this program, that we must bring together those of us who are willing to work, willing to make that change, and willing to really step up to the plate of what we feel is right for us. It might be ending chemtrails, it might be politics, it might be the Monsanto situation, the Nestle situation, the water situation, just like everything that you have mentioned in the past. But I can't help but agree with what you're saying, that we're not necessarily singing to the choir. We're actually trying to inspire the choir to create and take action.
And as the last statement, I'm sure, because we're running out of time, what I'd like to share is that moving from this transitional time to the time of choice, now is the actual time to literally let go of all the detractors, to all those who are not understanding your passion and vision, and start to manifest begin manifesting what you are being called to do, and do it from your heart. Because this is where we are right now. And the listeners are the ones with the energy, the passion, the desire, the understanding, and the ability to change the world. It is not one person, it is all of us. And if all of us in this community follow that and continue to follow it as we have, then we will transition into the time of consequence with beauty and with ease. And it won't be perfect. We're still going to have a lot of troubles, but we will know that our actions are building on something to allow for us to have a future for those next generations to come. And Bernard, I just would like to say thank you and Trevor and the team at G.I.C. Thanks for having me on the program once again. My website, bluestarprophecy.com and thegreatgathering.org. I hope you come and join us. And again, thank you for everything. Support for G.I.C. is always appreciated so that the work can continue and move forward. Financial donations, as well as support with continuing to do our collective work together. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you once again. Love you all so much. Thanks, Bernard.
I love it, and I thank you so much. And of course, we're going to have you back on the program in the next few months. Everyone, please, again, check out bluestarprophecy.com and thegreatgathering.org. Next week, we will have Lisa Bellini, who will be speaking of the Indigo movement and the Indigo children, Indigo adults, and we're looking forward to having her come on as well in the coming weeks. We're going to have someone come on who is going to teach you how to create community gardens in your neighborhood. We love you. Have a great week. Bye-bye.